DMT is known as ayahuasca in the Amazon and in Miami, where you are, and in New York and London. In fact, I know more ayahuasca sessions happening today in London and in New York than in the Amazon, where I spent years working with the shamans. But DMT is produced in the brain and is produced by the pituitary gland. So DMT is 2-dimethyltryptamine. So it's a methylated tryptamine with a couple of methyl bonds attached to it. Now, it's an analog of serotonin. It's almost identical to serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter that we need for the brain to work. Now, all psychedelics, bar none, except ibogaine, all of them work on serotonin receptors in the brain. So why would the Great Spirit have created a brain full of receptors for psychedelics? You got to ask yourself that question. And DMT is ubiquitous. It's everywhere in nature. It's in horses and grasshoppers, in plants and trees and humans. It's what allows flowers to blossom. And it allows humans, I believe, to blossom as well if it's used properly. So most of us are familiar with the ingested form of psychedelics, the external psychedelics, but we never learned that we manufacture our own. And particularly when we're being born, many women, probably about 20% of women that don't have C-sections, 20% of women that have natural births, have ecstatic births because there's a burst of DMT happening inside the brain where suddenly you're having a cosmic experience and you hear somebody screaming and you wonder who that is and you realize it's you delivering a baby. Also with great sex, not with bad sex, with great sex, you have this burst of DMT. When you're dreaming, the brain produces psychedelics. That's why when you're having an amazing dream, you don't go, "Oh, this is just a dream." Or when you're about to be eaten by a crocodile in a dream, you don't think dismissively, "This is just a dream." It's real. You're tripping because you're tripping. So this is why dreams are so real. But we just with minute doses of this amazing substance that the pineal gland produces. So the trick here is that we are deficient in the serotonin. We're in the substrates that are used to manufacture DMT. And if you're not producing DMT, the psychedelics and feeling one with all of creation and experiencing the sisterhood and brotherhood of humanity with all creatures, then you're producing a bunch of stress hormones, which are adrenaline and cortisol, lower brain that keeps you in fight or flight, living in scarcity, not having enough. I remember one time I was driving with my kids and we had a nice car. We had a lovely car. It was an older Mercedes. And they said to me, "Dad, why can't we have a nice car like the neighbors, like they had a Ferrari?" So you never have enough. You always live in fear. You live in scarcity no matter what you have if you're producing the stress molecules. But if you can quiet those down, the production of the stress molecules, and you can clear your pineal gland, which tends to calcify with products that we get in our drinking water. If you can decalcify it, and you can do that in about 2 weeks by drinking clean water, then the brain will begin to produce DMT and you'll have this experience of oneness. Now, if you don't have the substrates, if you don't have the brain chemistry, it doesn't matter how long you meditate for. You're not going to have a blissful experience. But see, we were primed to produce these natural psychedelics. But today, the amount of tryptophan in a green pea is a quarter of what it was 100 years ago, because green peas, with many other foods, are now being bred for sweetness and not for tryptophan content, which is more in the bitter side. We bred lettuce. If you get If you buy a head of lettuce in the market, it doesn't taste like anything. So, but if you buy arugula, it has that bite, a nice bite to it, and that's because we're still kind of adapting to the arugula. We're still breeding it for that sharp taste. And the minute you do that, you're beginning to breed out the tryptophan. And tryptophan needs to get into the brain for the brain to manufacture serotonin and for the pineal gland to be able to methylate serotonin into DMT or into psilocybin.